Hi, I'm Christopher Hine, and for our regular weekly video this week, I'm going to show you an overview video for Irimi Nage. So Irimi Nage is another technique that I think is super pivotal to Aikido and is also really confusing as to what it is. I clarify Irimi Nage in a very simple way for my school and the way we study. That might be different than the way it's clarified for you at your school, but I think you're going to recognize pretty much everything we do as regular Irimi Nage, but the way I talk about it might be a little different for you. So this is how I talk about Irimi Nage and my concept of what Irimi Nage is, and I'm going to kind of go over all the little variations on it and what really makes Irimi Nage an Irimi Nage as far as I'm concerned. I'm going to call Josh over here. We're going to go to work. Josh? All right, so let's talk a little bit about Irimi Nage and what Irimi Nage is. Clarification of terms really quick. Some styles of Aikido call what I call Kokyu Nage Irimi Nage, right? And so this in some schools is called an Irimi Nage. I just don't call it that. There's no reason why not to call it that. I just don't use the name. I call an Irimi Nage any throw that happens from back here. So back here makes Irimi Nage. That's why it's an Irimi Nage. The form that's created after that isn't what makes it Irimi Nage. What makes it Irimi Nage is it's a throw that happens from the Irimi position, right? So Josh and I are facing each other here, and I come back behind him like this, then I've made the Irimi, right? So actually, let me have you, there we go. Okay, so I'm here, and I come back, I shoot back here. Okay, now I've made Irimi. Any throw that happens now is Irimi Nage, right? Okay, now that's a little bit, I'm taking liberties with that. And why I'm taking those liberties is because it makes a whole grouping of techniques make sense together, and those things can kind of be confusing if you don't name them that way. So that's why I use that convention. I think I'm the only school that uses that convention, but here's why I use it. So when we get the Irimi position, so let me just have you sideways here. Okay, so now I've made Irimi, right? This is the good position. Now understand, I could just want to escape from this position, or I could want to attack him, or I could want to do all kinds of things to him. But what he's going to want to do no matter what is get out of the Irimi position. So that's what he's going to want to do, right? So he just wants to in some way get around. Okay, so I have to have a set of skills that keeps him from doing that. So regardless of what I want to do, right? And so I know that, like, you know, the common thing when we're thinking about Aikido in this era we're having right now is that, like, oh, I must want to get there to do something to him. Whether that's true or not, he is going to want to do something, and that what he wants to do is to turn around. So I need to have a set of skills for that. Okay, now one thing, and this is not going to look like Irimi Nage to you guys at all, but after I follow it up, you'll make sense to you. One thing I can do to help me if he tries to do that is this. Okay, so if I shove him away from me, when he turns around, I will have the distance I want, right? So remember, I had to go Irimi because there was a positioning or a distancing problem that became a positioning problem, right? So what I mean by that is if we were at our ideal distance and he breaks it down so he's faster than me or whatever, I now have a positioning problem. So a distance problem turned into a positioning problem. When I position, I no longer have a positioning problem, but if he turns back around, he just counteracted everything I did. So if I were simply to shove this guy away from me, I now have distance. So not only did I solve my positioning problem, I made it a distancing problem again, which is what I want. So I'm upcycling, right? So I'm going up in cycles of what I want, right? Okay, so that's really good for me. All right, now, A, that's not always going to work, and B, sometimes, well, let's just go with A first. So when we're here, if he turns really cleverly right into me and I shove him, this is what's going to happen, right? Okay, so I can't get that shove off because he's just going to turn right around it. Now, if as he turns around it, I go here, we start to get what looks like a classic Irimi Nage to people, right? So, and I think a lot of people have the idea that Irimi Nage is a clothesline. I don't really think in any style of Aikido that Irimi Nage is a clothesline. I think what it consistently is a controlling of the head. So here I have Josh's head controlled, so if Josh tries to turn towards me, that really sucks, right? And the more he tries to turn towards me, the more he comes off balance, which is good for me because now he can't get the position he wants. So this is the foundation of why our Irimi Nages happen. I got to the Irimi position, and then from the Irimi position, this guy is going to want to do something to me. So how do I head that off? All right, now, I said, you know, this doesn't look that much like an Irimi Nage, but I'll show you why it does look like it. So in some styles of Aikido, you will see where someone comes back here and they grab the collar and they drive this guy down to the mat like this, and then as he comes up, I throw Irimi Nage. Now, if you're like me, you saw that and you said, that's a dumb thing to do. Why would you push someone down and then pull them up and then throw them? Well, I believe what's being shown in that form is me doing essentially this, right? And when I do it, Josh is doing essentially the thing I showed you he could do, which is this, okay? And then he got low, right, which is even smart. So he added a step to it, which is he got low, which makes it even harder for me to control, right? Okay? And then when he does that, I stick with him and try to shove him down. So I'm trying to push him down because he already went low. Then he doesn't want to go low, so he comes up, and there's where our Irimi Nage comes off, okay? So that whole form, I think, is showing a series of throws that is going incorrectly, right? And so that's why I think we need to kind of put it together in this way to make sense out of what Irimi Nage is. Irimi Nage is simply a throw that happens once you've achieved the Irimi position. Now that throw can be a lot of things, right? So when I did styles of Kung Fu, and you see Ueshiba do this too, we learned to grab the neck and drive him back like this, right? So that could be Irimi Nage, right? I could get tight to him here, and as he turns, that could be Irimi Nage. Saito Sensei likes to emphasize pulling the collar or hitting the hips. Those could be Irimi Nage, right? Could be like in the Aikikai styles where you see them drive them down to the ground and pick them back up. That could be an Irimi Nage. So any throw that happens after the Irimi position has been achieved, and the throw's happening because he won't want me to be here, right? He'll want to adjust this to an advantageous position to him. Anytime a throw comes off there, that is an Irimi Nage. And there's lots and lots of ways those could play out. So I'm not going to go into a ton of the details. I think I gave you enough of the pieces to work with. If you guys want to see specific details on how the Irimi Nage techniques come off, I can do those. But I think this really should start to reframe it for you. And if you allow this reframing to kind of come into your perception, as you look at your details for the techniques, they'll probably start hashing out. Because that's kind of what happened to me, is once I started saying, oh, I think Irimi Nage should just be a throw that comes after the Irimi, then as I looked at other Aikido styles, I was like, oh, that's why they're doing this here and why they're doing this here, and it all began to make a lot more sense to me. So I think this is a nice overview to start to look at Irimi Nage. Irimi Nage is like Kokyu Nage in that it's a technique that a lot of people say, oh, that's an Irimi Nage, when you're like, I don't know if that's an Irimi Nage. Why is that an Irimi Nage? But in my school, it's really simple. If they've achieved the Irimi position, and then whatever is happening to keep him from getting out of the Irimi position, a throw happens, a projection happens, then that is an Irimi Nage. All right, so I am Christopher Hine. This is Joshua Teehee. Maya Solana McDaniel's now hiding behind that camera right over there, and she gave one of these, so we know she's there. You guys don't, but I know she's there. Josh knows she's there, right? Yep. All right. Anyways, we'll see you guys in some future videos. Thanks a lot.